Diddy's son, Christian King. Combs was bursting with energy after learning his dad was acquitted of racketeering and sex trafficking charges, and burned off his excitement with a round of push-ups. Casey was spotted a couple blocks away from the courtroom after the verdict on Wednesday, and you can see him beaming with enthusiasm as he thanked fans for their thoughts and prayers. You can also hear the sounds of his recently released joint EP with Kanye West, Never Stop, a project that has new meaning now that Diddy could be coming home soon if he's granted bail. King later got a push-up partner in his fellow artist Derrick Milano, who also produced on Never Stop, It'll Be a Day They Never Forget. We now also know that Diddy isn't planning to hook up with any escorts if he's released on bond. Freaking off will have to wait for his family time. The sheer contrast between the somber mood that had been haunting the Combs family for weeks and the sudden eruption of joy in King's demeanor could not have been more dramatic. For a family that had been under relentless public scrutiny, living under the ominous shadow of federal investigations and damning headlines, this single moment felt like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. King Combs had been one of the most visible supporters of his father throughout the legal proceedings, never wavering in his defense of Diddy's character. Even when the rest of the world seemed ready to turn their backs, as King pounded the concrete sidewalk with each push-up, his movements seemed to carry more than just physical effort. They carried relief, triumph, defiance, and hope. To outsiders, it may have looked like a mere celebration, but to those who knew what this family had endured, it was a spiritual release. And the soundtrack of Never Stop thumping in the background only amplified the moment's emotional weight. That EP co-created with Kanye West, another figure known for stirring controversy and commanding attention, suddenly carried a symbolic message. Its title alone echoed through the streets like a mantra. Never stop. Never stop believing. Never stop fighting. Never stop hoping. In the weeks leading up to the verdict, the pressure had mounted on the entire Combs family. Federal prosecutors had built what many believed to be an airtight case. The allegations were stacked like bricks: racketeering, sex trafficking, conspiracy, a long paper trail of accusations that stretched back years. It was enough to break even the most resilient spirits. But behind the scenes, King Combs was holding the line. He was not just the son of a man on trial, he was now the public face of the family, carrying the emotional burden of loyalty, legacy, and lineage. The media had been relentless, digging up everything they could from Diddy's past, spinning theories and dissecting every public statement, every court appearance, and even every social media post made by the family. King's reaction to the verdict wasn't just about his father, it was about survival. Was about standing tall after being emotionally pummeled for months. The push-ups were symbolic, a declaration that this family would not fold, would not crumble, and would not be reduced to a headline. Every repetition was a reclaiming of dignity, a message to the world that the Combs name would endure. The streets around the courthouse were buzzing with speculation as onlookers and fans tried to catch a glimpse of the aftermath. Few were expecting to see King in such good spirits, let alone engaging in a spontaneous workout with Derrick Milano. The two artists laughed between reps, drawing curious eyes and smartphone cameras. Milano, who had played an integral role in the creative direction of Never Stop, was more than just a friend. In that moment, he was a brother in arms. He too had stood by the family, and the fact that he was there joining King in what looked like a public act of redemption said everything. This wasn't just a personal victory, it was a communal one. Back in the courtroom, however, emotions had taken a more serious tone. Diddy had sat motionless as the verdict was read, his expression unreadable. Whether it was relief, exhaustion, or disbelief wasn't clear. What was clear was that the weight of years of legal battles, public scandals, and whispered accusations had not been enough to destroy him in the eyes of the law. His legal team exhaled visibly, and his family, watching from a distance, wept and embraced. Outside the courtroom, King Combs' joy became the perfect counterpoint to his father's composed silence. The two reactions together painted the full picture: a father relieved but cautious, a son exuberant and defiant. For Diddy, the battle wasn't over. He still had to await a decision on bail, and the court of public opinion was still sharply divided. But for King, that moment was enough. It was a promise that his family's story wouldn't end in shame. While many were still digesting the shock of the acquittal, rumors began to spread online and verified whispers that Diddy would go right, back to his old ways if released. Social media lit up with predictions, gossip, and memes, with some even joking that he'd have a penthouse full of escorts by nightfall. But sources close to the family quickly shut that down. Diddy, they said, had made it clear if he walked free, it wouldn't be into the arms of strangers, it would be into the arms of his family. Freaking off will have to wait. One family insider quipped, half joking, half serious. The comment struck a chord. For once, the image of Diddy, the one who had always embraced the party lifestyle, always surrounded by opulence and controversy, was being recast. He wasn't the playboy mogul in this chapter. He was the father, the family man, the symbol of perseverance in the face of adversity. As the day unfolded, tributes began pouring in from fans, fellow artists, and even longtime critics who, despite their reservations about Diddy's past, couldn't help but acknowledge the weight of the verdict. Some called it justice, others called it luck, but everyone agreed it was a pivotal moment in the cultural landscape. This wasn't just a celebrity scandal. It was a reflection of how fame, power, and accountability collide in America's justice system. Meanwhile, King Combs continued his celebration. That night, a spontaneous block party formed outside one of their favorite studios in Los Angeles. King took the mic, not to perform, but to speak. His words were raw and unscripted. He talked about resilience, about family, about how faith had carried them through the darkest hours. He thanked the fans who had sent messages, defended them online, and refused to give in to the noise. He didn't pretend like things would go back to normal. "This changes everything," he said. "We ain't going back, or going forward." The mood was triumphant, but grounded. Diddy's fate still hinged on the upcoming bail hearing, and no one in the family was taking anything for granted. But the celebration wasn't just about freedom, it was about survival. They had weathered a storm that could have torn any dynasty apart. And while the scars would remain, so would the strength. Behind closed doors, the mood was more intimate. King Combs sat with his younger siblings, reassuring them, laughing with them, holding them. For all his public bravado, King had always been deeply protective of his family. Now, more than ever, they needed to be reminded that they were still whole. The next morning, headlines exploded again, this time with a different tone. Diddy acquitted. What it means for hip-hop's legacy? King Combs celebrates with street workout. Never Stop, the anthem of redemption. The media that had once circled like vultures now shifted their tone. The story wasn't over, but for now, it had changed course. Calls poured in from record labels, collaborators, and networks eager to capitalize on the momentum. But the Combs family wasn't rushing into anything. Their priority was unity, healing, and moving forward with purpose. There was talk of a documentary, maybe even a sit-down interview, but nothing was confirmed. The family had learned not to trust too easily, not to move too fast. They were taking their time, and King Combs, he was already back in the studio laying down new verses that carried the weight of everything they just endured. In the end, that single image, King Combs doing push-ups on the sidewalk, music blaring, smile wide, became a symbol of a family's refusal to be broken, a symbol of a son's unwavering love, a symbol of an empire that, though battered, still stood.